Alright guys, we're back for another help video. This is a pretty difficult problem that pops up either in that quiz or the unit test dealing with fractions, decimals, and percents. So here we go. Because of a problem in the program, the video timer in a video player did not begin counting. I'm going to turn my focus off. Sorry, the video did not begin counting until let's try this again. I'm just going to start at the second sentence. The player began counting at 0 seconds, even though the video had already played 190 frames. So the video is playing 25 frames per second. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down before I even know what we're trying to solve. 125 frames per second. I could also write that, as 25 frames per second. I feel like I may have misspoken something a moment ago. My brain's bouncing around between 190 and 25. And then we have another number there. Negative 3.25 is the time they want us to solve for. So time of negative 3 2/5. I think I said that wrong too. Struggling this morning. And 190 frames at 0 seconds. So we know that every 1 second that passes is 25 frames. The video, if we kind of like draw a picture, I'm going to draw a bunch of frames. So these are video frames. And we'll say that 190 frames have already passed when the timer starts counting at 0 seconds. And then that's going to move forward with positive amount of seconds. Right? What they're asking us is when the timer was at negative 3 2/5, which really we could say is negative 3.4 if we wanted to convert that over to a decimal. How many frames had already played? Well, assuming that we don't get all the way back to the beginning of the frames, there will be some amount of frames right here that have already played even at negative 3 2/5 or 3.4 seconds behind when the counter started. So to figure out how many frames had surpassed in this distance, well, we know that that distance was 3.4 seconds. So we can take our 3.4 seconds and multiply it by the 25 frames per second. Now what actually happens here is our units are going to cancel out, because if I put 3.4 seconds over 1 and 25 frames per second written as its ratio or kind of rate form here, we're going to talk about rates in this coming chapter actually, then my seconds cancel out because seconds on top and seconds on bottom, labels will reduce out with each other, and then our answer just ends up in frames, which is what we want. So if we do that math, of course, grab your calculator. At this point, we're doing difficult enough math. We're just using calculators for pretty much everything. And that tells me 85. So 85 frames backwards, right? 85 frames is not my answer. 85 frames is how many frames we go. Sorry, and I should not put that on bottom actually, because on bottom was my time. I should really write this on top to say 85 frames were in that 3.4 seconds. So how many frames were out here before that timestamp of 3.4 seconds before the 0? Well, if we know that there are 190 frames at this point, and we went 85 frames backwards, then the amount of frames left, we would do subtraction, right? To get this value of 105, we would do the 190 frames that we've already had minus the 85 frames that we went backwards to get to our negative time, and that gives us a result of 105 frames, which I wrote on top because that is where we had been keeping our frames. So there is the whole problem done out. With 25 frames per second, we can calculate that 3.4 seconds will actually be 85 frames worth of video. If we go those 85 frames backwards, we take that away from our 190 frames that have already happened, and we get 105 frames right at this point of -3 2/5 seconds. Keep those problems coming. I'll keep making videos and send them back to you guys as quick as I can.